I'm one of those really weird people who cares a lot about the combat in the Persona games. Sure, the social life aspect is ultimately what makes these games what they are, but I don't think there's nearly enough praise for the combat portion of the game. The Persona series has some of the slickest combat you can find in the genre. While I'm personally a little more impartial to the mainline SMT games when it comes to gameplay, the modern Persona games have a unique flavor of their own, with the one more system and more dedicated party roles. And if you were to ask me, I think that Persona 3 FES has my favorite combat from the newer games. Sure, the mechanics are a little more simple, and the AI takes a bit to get used to, but the quirks exclusive to this game makes it almost infinitely replayable for me. I've played and replayed this game so many times over the years, to the point where I think I can confidently say that I've got a pretty good understanding of P3 and its design. So I think we've got to ask the obvious question: who is the best party member in Persona 3? Firstly, let's set some ground rules so we're on the same page here. I want to look at these party members as individuals and analyze what they bring to the table. Factors like party composition and equipment, while important, won't be the sole deciding factor. A party member's ranking ultimately comes down to their stats, skills, and how those tools are applied in P3's design. For this reason, I'm going to be excluding Fuka and the main character, since they don't play by the same rules as everyone else. Also, for the sake of pacing and not having to make more than one list, this ranking is constructed with every version of these characters in mind, though I'll mainly be using FES and Reload as reference points. Sure, Portable has some unique changes, but it's not enough to completely redefine a character. With that out of the way, let's get on to our list. But first, let me tell you about today's sponsor, War Thunder. War Thunder is the most comprehensive vehicle combat game ever made. Take command of over 2,500 different vehicles from 10 major nations, ranging from tanks, planes, helicopters, ships, and fighter jets, all of which are meticulously crafted for accuracy and immersion. You can even further customize your vehicles and tailor them to your preferred aesthetic and playstyle. One of War Thunder's best qualities is the level of detail on offer. On top of having some of the most detailed vehicles I've seen in a game, the realistic environments and authentic sound design works wonders in immersing the player. War Thunder even offers game modes focused on simulation and realism, for those looking to capture the feeling of piloting these powerful machines. There's even an option for a detailed X-ray view to see how your vehicle was destroyed in combat. With a worldwide community of over 70 million players and different game modes to appeal to every kind of player, there's always a fun and engaging piece of content to sink your teeth into. And the best part about all of this is that War Thunder is absolutely free to play. War Thunder is available for PS4, PS5, Xbox Series S and X, Xbox One, and PC. By signing up using my link in the description or pinned comment, new players and ones who are inactive for at least 6 months will be able to claim a massive bonus pack that includes multiple premium vehicles, a premium account, exclusive vehicle decor, and much more. But act quickly, because this offer is available for limited time only. Once again, major thanks to War Thunder for sponsoring today's video.
Mano a mano, let's do this!
Coming in at the bottom of our list is the man with the plan, Junpei Iori. Junpei is a character that I have tried really hard to make work over my multiple playthroughs of this game. On paper, he doesn't seem to be that bad at all. He's got a high strength and endurance stat, and gets access to one of every type of physical attack. But the issue is that this is all he really gets. Junpei is a bit of a one-trick pony. While he does have some versatility, mainly through defense buffs and fire magic, other party members not only cover those fields, but they do it in a far better way than Junpei does. Let's put it this way: Junpei is mainly a physical attacker with access to fire magic. Junpei's best skill is Maaraku Kaja. This is the only skill that I really think he has going for him. However, this actually does make Junpei a good support in some scenarios, especially when combined with his fire nullification and natural health regeneration. The answer does a great job of highlighting this. It's almost as if the designers went out of their way to give him a purpose in certain fights. Ultimately, this doesn't make him anything more than situational. Junpei is a character that specializes in physical damage, in a game where magic reigns supreme, and unfortunately, the same also applies to his Reload counterpart. Junpei in Reload received a rather interesting buff, and while it does make him better than before, he's still not great in my eyes. His character trait increases the odds of landing critical hits, while also boosting the damage dealt by them. With the right setup, he can land critical hits like mad, but even still, he gets outdamaged by other physical attackers without any good magic to make up for it. Combine this with one of the more restrictive Theurgy charge requirements, and you've got yourself a character that, while better than his original counterpart, is still ultimately one that you'll find yourself benching. Some characters do everything Junpei can but better, but hey, he'll always be the man in my heart. Koromaru is, without a doubt, the worst party member in the original Persona 3. Like, he's almost laughably bad. Koromaru specializes in fire damage, as well as dark-based instant kill magic. However, in the original game, that's really all Koromaru had going for him. He didn't even get Tsukukaja until the answer, which, while an improvement, doesn't make up for his lacking abilities. While his fire damage is technically stronger than Junpei's, Koromaru's shortcomings overpower any positives he might have. His strength and magic stats are below average, and having a weakness to light makes him too much of a liability in the few bosses where he could have been useful. Koromaru is the only character that I never use in the PS2 version of the game. However, the upgrade he got in Reload was such an improvement that it managed to bump him up on this list, even though it's not a significant one. Persona 3 Reload's alterations to light and dark spells inherently gives Koromaru an edge that he didn't have before. The changes don't stop there either, since not only does he keep the agility buffs from the answer, but there's also a few new tools at his disposal. Koromaru got a new physical skill, Dark Amp, and even gets access to a weapon that changes his basic attack to Wind Affinity. Unlike every other party member, Koromaru also starts off with 2 Theurgies too, so he can be useful right out of the gate. Sounds like a pretty good upgrade on paper, however, the devil is in the details. The big issue with Koromaru is that he's only really decent for random encounters. His kit is designed around taking advantage of enemy weaknesses. His Theurgy charges faster when he gets a 1 more, and his characteristic is Auto Masakunda. However, it's during bosses where Koromaru starts to struggle a bit. With a lack of healing of any kind, the most amount of support you're going to be getting out of him is through agility buffs and his second Theurgy. Sure, his ultimate skill is Debilitate, but it shows up too late in the skill sheet for it to be truly useful. Much like Junpei, Koromaru has too limited of an appeal to be truly useful to me. Anything that he can do can easily be covered up by other party members, but the difference is that they also have applications during boss fights. I'll give Reload credit for the revamped skill list, but the lackluster stats combined with the exclusive equipment to manage makes Koromaru a party member that's hard to recommend in my eyes.
Alright, let's kick some ass.
Alright, so ranking Shinji is a bit difficult. On one hand, being a temporary party member inherently gives him a limited appeal. In the original game especially, it's hard to justify using Shinjiro. He commits the terrible crime of only having access to physical attacks in a magic-centric game. His starting skill set is also pretty lackluster. I can think of maybe 1 or 2 times where Shinji is truly useful in combat, and that's mostly because he's the only party member who doesn't have a weakness. If we were just going off of the original game alone, then yeah, he's the worst party member without a doubt. But on the other hand, the upgrade Shinji got on Reload was so good that he's borderline the best character in the game now. Shinji in Persona 3 Reload is disgusting. He's too good to be a permanent party member. Reload is already inherently a more physical focused game than the original was. However, the buffs he got doesn't end there. On top of having a much better starting skill set, Shinji gets access to Bloody Charge. It's essentially a version of Power Charge that costs HP to use and comes with the added benefit of increasing his critical hit rate. Combine this with one of his hammers that comes with Auto Rebellion, and you've got yourself someone who rivals Junpei with how often he scores critical hits. And don't even get me started on his Theurgy. Not only does it hit like a truck, it's one of the fastest charging ones, thanks to its forgiving condition of only needing to be at half HP at the start of his turn. And since all of Shinji's hard-hitting attacks takes a large chunk of HP to execute, you'll be able to easily charge his Theurgy within a few turns. Shinjiro's only downside is that he lacks any sort of defensive option or support abilities to speak of. Sure, he has the potential to get Debilitate, but due to the nature of the game's story, he's not around long enough to reach his full potential, which is ultimately his biggest flaw. If Shinji was a permanent party member, then there's no doubt in my mind that he'd be one of, if not the best in the game, but his short shelf life and his doo-doo-ass fest counterpart keep me from wanting me to rank him any higher than 7th place.
Keep your filthy hands off my sister!
Now I bet you weren't expecting this character to be included on this list. Menace is the pure definition of a solid party member. She's got a wide variety of elemental coverage with access to strike, slash, pierce, wind, and ice skills, with an ailment thrown in there for good measure. However, she's got an ace in the hole with her own Orgia mode that's basically a direct upgrade over the one Aigis had in the journey. It lasts longer and makes her skills cost 0 resources. Menace is a character that can be used in nearly every scenario due to not having any elemental weaknesses. However, her application varies depending on the enemies you're up against. With Dekaja being her only supportive skill and her below average magic stat, Menace doesn't have the same potential as the more dedicated spellcasters, but this doesn't mean that she can't be useful as a substitute. It also helps that the answer is designed around the player using her as much as possible. Ultimately, Menace is best used for knocking down enemies, and if they don't have a weakness, then she can fall back on her massive strength stat. As of writing this, the Answer DLC for Reload hasn't been released yet, so we don't have any idea how her kit is going to be altered for the remake. Because of this, I can't place her any higher than she is now. Who knows, she might get a Shinjiro-sized buff, but only time will tell.
Let us strike while the iron's hot.
Aigis is a better Junpei. This applies in the original Persona 3 and especially Reload. Aigis is built like a tank. She's got the highest endurance stat in the game and naturally nulls Pierce, as well as Poison and Fess. This makes her great in a supportive role, and she has the skills to back it up. Aigis has access to every single party-wide buff, single target healing and revival skills, and can even nullify debuffs with Dekunda. However, her offense is nothing to scoff at either. God's Hand and Akasha Arts are her hardest hitting moves, and Orgia mode can push it even further. Though unfortunately, her strength stat isn't the greatest, so you'll most likely be keeping her in that supportive role, and it's here when the cracks start to form a bit. Aigis is a good support character, but much like Koromaru, her real utility only starts to shine in the latter half of the game. In Persona, debuffs tend to be better than buffs early on, since the single target limit isn't that much of an issue. However, for buffs to be truly useful, then you need to get ones that cover the entire party, and in Aigis' case, those skills show up in the latter half of her learn set. It takes a good amount of investment for Aigis' potential to truly shine, but once you start to learn some of her better support skills, Aigis becomes a much more rounded party member. Persona 3 Reload puts a much greater emphasis on the physical attributes of Aigis in exchange for losing out on some of the support abilities. Her natural strength stat has been increased, alongside getting a physical boosting combat characteristic. Combine this with a revamped Orgia mode, and Aigis can sure lay on the damage. The only issue now is that there are too many skills to manage. While it is possible to build Aigis around both attacking and supporting, you'll eventually run into a scenario where one type of skill is going to be dropped in favor for a passive or something. In a way, this lets you build Aigis in whatever way you want, but this comes with you eventually having to make at least 1 or 2 sacrifices. Also, Aigis' second Theurgy, while dealing more damage, pales in comparison to the buff that Orgia mode brings. Aigis got a massive upgrade in attack, that's for sure, but it doesn't quite fix the dilemma she faces when it comes to her buffs. A good party member all around, though her utility pales in comparison to some of her contemporaries.
You'll fall by my hand!
Mitsuru is a goddess. Also, she's a really good party member. Mitsuru in Persona 3 Fest was a powerhouse. She had the second highest magic stat in the game with a kit to back it up. Bufudyne, a natural ice amp, and Mind Charge all did wonders in making her the hardest hitting party member in that field, with damage boosting accessories available as early as level 30 to push her even further. If there's an enemy that's affected by ice damage, then there's a chance that Mitsuru can take them out no problem. Mitsuru's high damage makes her invaluable for both random encounters and boss battles, and she's even equipped with single target healing in case of emergencies. I'd say that Mitsuru's only drawback in the original game is that her secondary skills aren't as useful as they could be. Useful in some scenarios for sure, but not enough to be all that great. Also, Spirit Drain is kind of ass in general. However, even with those blemishes, Mitsuru can hit like a truck with the right setup. And believe it or not, reload makes her even better. While it's true that she only gets ice boost instead of amp, the rest of her kit has been altered in ways to make her vastly more versatile. Mitsuru in reload has a slightly different role than before. She can still deal massive damage with her magic, but now she's more so built around using ailments. Most of her attacks even come with secondary effects, and the likelihood of them sticking has been increased thanks to learning ailment boost. This is integral because her theurgy gauge charges faster when landing status ailments, as well as using her new debuff. Mitsuru's second theurgy is so damn good in this game. Massive almighty damage to one foe as well as a free debilitate? Jesus Christ. However, the big downside about using Mitsuru in both games is that she's a character whose utility only truly shines when paired with the right party. Her combat characteristic is really good. It increases the chance of landing a critical hit on an enemy inflicted with a status ailment. The issue with this though is that this is something that she can't really take full advantage of herself. Her strength stat isn't the best, and the two physical skills that she does get access to caps out at medium damage. Mitsuru also lost her healing magic in the transition from Fest to Reload, so her support isn't quite as good as before. When you pair her up with the right characters, Mitsuru can be a great unit. However, for the purposes of this list, the over-reliance on teammates stifles her max potential.
Here's our chance! Let's do it!
Ken is the most underrated party member in the original Persona 3. I have no idea why, but everywhere I look, people call this kid useless or not a good teammate. And I have to ask what the hell you guys are talking about. Ken is a Swiss Army knife. He easily has one of the most versatile kits in the entire game. With a natural pierce attack, electric skills, light damage, party-wide healing and revives, Spearmaster, and Vile Assault to decimate downed enemies. He's also one of the rare characters to be able to change the element of his basic attack through fusion weapons, or give himself a passive that he might be lacking. Combine these with amp accessories and Ken's damage can easily keep up with the more dedicated element users. However, that's the core issue with Ken. You need to give him certain pieces of equipment for his strengths to truly show, and while this makes him a good member, he ultimately serves the purpose of being a substitute for other characters. Ken also suffers from having one of the worst weaknesses in the game. If Ken is targeted by any Muto skill, then he's basically a goner. And while this is a weakness that can be covered, by doing so, you're locking him out of reaching his full potential damage-wise. In random encounters, no party member matches Ken's coverage, but in boss battles, he's a little frail. Ken is the character who received the biggest change in Reload. While some of his versatility is still intact, the loss of the wind element spear is a big downgrade. To make up for this, Ken's support abilities have been increased tenfold. He now has access to Dekaja as well as Tetrakarn and Makarakarn. Ken's healing magic is also learned much earlier than before. However, what makes Ken so good on Reload isn't just limited to the skills he has access to or his stats, rather it's in his theurgies and characteristics. Ken's first theurgy can be pretty strong if he happens to be concentrated, and is equipped with Light Boost and Light Amp, but his second one is just fucking disgusting. Divine Intervention is the best theurgy in the game. It's a party-wide heal that not only revives any knocked out members, but it also applies both Tetrakarn and Makarakarn to the whole team. Combine this with Ken's insanely quick recharge time and busted characteristic, and you're not dying with this kid in your party. Sure, his low SP might be a bit concerning, but his natural Invigorate and ultimate weapon bonus effect makes this a non-issue. You can even give Ken a Chakra Ring to half his SP cost if you really want to, though I recommend running Indra Bracers to boost his elect damage instead. Ken is one of the strongest party members in Persona 3 hands down, and if you think he's good, wait until you hear about the two remaining characters.
How do you like the new me?
Coming in at the number 2 spot is Yukari Takeba. For being one of the first party members you get access to, Yukari is surprisingly great. She's got the highest magic stat in the game, access to wind skills, healing, revival, ailment curing skills, and of course, natural access to pierce attacks. What makes Yukari such a good party member is how self-sufficient she can be. She can hit hard with the right setup, but can also keep herself safe with healing magic. And with a large SP pool, she'll be able to keep this up for longer than any other party member. However, in the original game, Yukari has some pretty nasty downsides. She doesn't have the highest HP pool, and her low endurance makes any weakness exploits borderline deadly, though this can be circumvented with resist elect armor if you're lucky enough to have it. Where Yukari really falters is in her skill selection. She's missing some pretty vital skills like Wind Boost and Wind Amp, so you're gonna have to make up for that in her equipment selection. And then there's Charm D, a skill that does not work in Persona 3 FES. I'm one of those people that's grown to really like the tactics system in this game. However, for some reason or another, Yukari will never use Charm D, regardless of the tactic she's set to. And since this is a skill that she keeps for the entire game, she essentially has a dead skill slot. Regardless of all of that, Yukari still manages to pull her weight due to how applicable she is in nearly every situation. Good damage, an element that's a pretty common weakness, and full party support. Hard to think of many reasons to not use Yukari in the main game. This is doubly true for Reload. Yukari was already a solid character, so the fact that she got this much of a buff is kind of absurd. She kept everything that made her special in the original game, but now she has even more skills to play around with. Yukari was already one of the best support characters, but now she's on a whole other level thanks to the inclusion of status ailments and agility debuffs. She also gets natural access to Wind Amp, so you no longer have to sacrifice an accessory slot if you want to keep her damage up. However, it's in her theurgy and combat characteristics where Yukari shines the most. Yukari's got two theurgies, one of which is a high damaging wind-based attack that can easily decimate whatever shadow you're up against, and the second one is a party-wide concentrate, which is such a busted ability and synergizes really well with most other theurgies in the game. With the right setup, Yukari can rip through shadows without breaking a sweat, but it's in her supporting skills where she shines the most. Yukari has the best combat characteristic. It's essentially a permanent version of Spellmaster exclusively for healing magic, and the upgraded version makes it a 75% SP reduction. This alone makes her the best healer in the game, and if you decide to run an Invigorate 3 accessory or a Chakra Ring, then you have no fear of running out of SP at all. Oh, and her theurgy charges faster through healing, by the way. With this setup, Yukari is easily one of the best party members in the game, and is someone who rarely, if ever, should be benched. She has strong magic, amazing healing, and has applications in nearly every scenario. It's hard to imagine any other character topping what she brings to the table, though there is one person who dares rise to the challenge.
I've been waiting for this.
Akihiko Sanada is the best Persona 3 party member. Period. No contest. In the original P3, Akihiko was legendary. It's actually absurd how good he was back then. Akihiko had it all. He's the only permanent member to have innate access to strike damage and Fistmaster. His electric skills pack one hell of a punch, and he naturally learns Elect Amp. However, he's got plenty of versatility beyond that thanks to his equipment. If you really want to, you can make Akihiko rival Mitsuru when it comes to ice magic, and there's no better character for the support role. Akihiko has access to every single debuff in the game. This alone makes him perfect for every boss battle. He can even provide some good single target healing too in case of an emergency. With a solid mixed attack stat and a kit to back it up, Akihiko is by far the best party member in the original game. He fits well with every composition and is useful in every scenario. Simply put, he's busted, so it's no surprise to see him get a bit of a nerf in Reload. I think people are over-exaggerating how much of a nerf Akihiko got in this game. While it's true that his support abilities have been downplayed a bit, and he did unfortunately lose access to his ice-based weapon, however, his offensive capabilities have been buffed significantly. Akihiko still has the trait of being a mixed physical and magic attacker, but now there's more emphasis placed on the former. He's the only character in the game to have natural access to a tier 5 attack in the form of God's Hand, and combined with his high strength stat, this makes him hit like a truck. You can even push his damage further with strike boost or amp weapons and accessories, or you can give him apt pupil to increase his crit rate. Akihiko's magic also received quite a bit of a buff now, since he has natural access to Elect Boost and Elect Amp. He still only has single target healing, but hey, what can you do? The most controversial change to Akihiko is in how his support role has been changed a bit. He lost 2 of his debuffs and gained Tsukukaja as a replacement, and while this might seem like a bad thing, this is actually a blessing in disguise. Akihiko has one of the best combat characteristics in the game, top 3 at the very least. Persona and SMT games put a large emphasis on buffs and debuffs. This is obvious to anyone who's played any of these games. Akihiko's characteristic greatly increases the potency of buffs. So in a game all about buffs, any buff on Akihiko is just objectively stronger than on any other character. Plus, his theurgy charges faster the more buffs you got on him. A fully buffed Akihiko is something to fear. He does a crazy amount of damage, and his theurgy charges in only a few turns. Give him his ultimate weapon for auto heat riser, and you can start every fight with him in peak condition. Or better yet, have Akihiko rock strike boost and strike amp, and use Ken's heat riser to make up for the downtime, and you've got yourself someone who can bring the pain without much investment. So yeah, while Akihiko did technically get nerfed, going from the undisputed best character to the strongest attacker seems like a good trade-off to me. Well, that's the list. All in all, while some characters are better than others, it's hard for me to say any of them are outright bad. The fun thing about RPGs is that every character, no matter the skill set, can find a home in different party compositions. These are team-based games after all, so no character can fully carry themselves. Sometimes a party member might not be great on their own, but will shine when teamed up with someone who can complement their stats or moveset. Especially in a game like Persona 3, where characters are constructed with the idea of versatility in mind. So, what do you think of this list? Let me know down below if you agree with it, or maybe if you think a character should be ranked higher than they are now. Except Koromaru, he still sucks. Once again, major thanks to War Thunder for sponsoring today's video. If you're interested in checking out War Thunder, then consider downloading the game for free using my link in the description and pinned comment. Don't forget that new players or inactive players who returned after at least 6 months will also get a huge bonus package with premium vehicles, a premium account, and much more when signing up. The game is available for Xbox, PlayStation, and PC, so if you don't want to miss out on this amazing deal, then get it while you still can. Hey everyone, thank you all so much for watching. I'd like to give a special shout out to all of my channel supporters whose names are on screen now. It's because of all of you legends that I'm able to dedicate the time I have to this channel. It really is a dream come true, and I can't thank you all enough for supporting me. If anyone watching wants to support long-form content on JRPGs or just video games in general, maybe consider checking out my Patreon or becoming a channel member. You'll get your name in the credits of every video and early access to my new content before anyone else. So if that sounds like a good deal, you can find out more by following the links in the description. Before anyone asks, yes, I am working on an actual Persona 3 Reload video. I'm still in the script writing process for that one though, and it's gonna be a bit of a meaty one. I want to make sure that I say everything that I want to say, so as a result, I'm making sure I take my time with this one. I've been doing a bunch of research into the development of both games, and it's certainly given me a bit of a different outlook on these titles. In what way, you'll just have to wait and see. As for when this video is gonna be out, I can't quite say just yet. I'm currently aiming for April, but if push comes to shove, then I might have to push it back till May. It all really depends on how smoothly the script writing and editing process goes. I'm most likely gonna have a smaller video out in the meantime, so the channel won't be completely dry of content, so look forward to that. As always, if you want to stay up to date with that and all of my other upcoming projects, maybe consider following my Twitter or joining my Discord server. Both will be linked in the description. Once again, thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see you all next time.